hospital in Pretoria is falling apart. At one time, it was considered one of the best facilities in the country. Its 500 beds were used by world leaders, including Nelson Mandela. A company appointed to investigate found 156 million rand was spent on maintenance. None was carried out. Defence Minister Modise is promising to take action. She says she will rip the titles off those involved. Parliament's Standing Committee on Defence also wants action. Let's get some more details now from its chairperson, Cyril Xaba. Mr. Xaba, thank you very much for your time. This is so disheartening for myself, at least as a South African, to see that yet more state funds that were actually supposed to go into a project to improve people's lives have been squandered.
Yes, good morning. It was a shocker, the news that close to R500 million was spent on the hospital, one military hospital. But there is very little to show, very little to nothing, in fact, to show for the amount of money that was spent on the project. It started in 2006, was meant to finish around 2009, and when the Department of Public Works walked away from the project in 2011, and the facilities that were there had already been taken out. The hospital had 12 theaters on the first floor, 12 theaters, pharmacy, radiography, and a number X-ray and a number of other facilities. Those facilities are no longer in the hospital, resulting in the hospital now having to outsource services to private service providers. It's at a huge cost. The last figure we were given over the past, I can't remember, 6 or 7 years, it amounts to about R1 billion that has been spent on outsourcing. So you look at the R1 billion we spent on outsourcing, plus R500 million we spent on this repair and maintenance project that became a total flop or a flop. It tells you a horror story indeed.
I mean, Mr. Xaba, looking at this and how long ago the project was supposed to start, it started, went from department to department, etc. Is this the first time that the Portfolio Committee is raising concern around this issue from 2006? And I believe the initial project had commenced back in 2001 even.
Well, I cannot talk of the Portfolio Committee in the fifth administration because I was not there. But from the record, they did raise alarms on the delay in completing the project. This Portfolio Committee in 2020, it took a visit to a number of military bases. And one of those bases was this hospital in Tabatswani. And we went through all the floors, and we're happy, quite excited about the refurbishment of the 7th floor from the COVID money that was allocated to the department. Within about 6 or 7 weeks, they produced a state-of-the-art floor, the 7th floor. But the issue remains in the first floor because that's where the heart of the hospital is, where, as we speak, it lies in room. So we then, from 2010, we then resolved that we need to conduct a forensic. We need to ask AG to conduct forensic audit into this. But later we learned that the department had already undertaken the exercise. We waited for the report, and the report was then delivered, as you know, about on Thursday.
Well, Minister Thandi Modise takes over the Defence and Military Department after, of course, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula was at the helm for years. According to your records, was there anything that the former minister had told, the Portfolio Committee? I know you weren't there in the Fifth Amendment, but you said that there were records that showed that there were concerns that were raised. So was there anything in that record that had an explanation from the former minister?
Well, we must commend the former minister for having allowed the forensic investigation to be undertaken, because I believe she too wanted to understand what went wrong, because initially the initial budget was spent and there was a top-up, but still we cannot produce the work that was initially contemplated. We are told that there was some interference from the officials of the Department of Defense, where they kept changing specifications, but I don't think that could be the only cause for the huge overruns, the delay in completing the hospital, and the mess that we found on the first floor.
Now, in terms of the current minister, Thandi Modise, what is it that the Portfolio Committee has told her she needs to do? Obviously, something needs to be done, very soon, because if you're looking at 2006, there might be some evidence that has now disappeared, maybe, etc. So what have you asked the Minister of Defence to do to, make sure that people take account?
Well, look, our message to the Minister of Defense, to the Secretary for Defense, and to the Chief of the Defense Force is that they must roll up their sleeves and hold those responsible accountable. We heard that one of the general has been referred to the SAPS. But we also want the public works to also take actions, because this project was driven by public works, but we blame the department for lack of oversight, the Department of Defense for lack of oversight of the projects, because they remain the client department and the interest. They also participated in developing the original scope and design of the institution. Why they allow them to go over the time allocated, it fails us. So I think that action must be taken. That's number one. And number two, the report is very clear that there are instances where supply chain policies were flouted. And we also want a further investigation in that area. We've also asked the Office of the Auditor General to look into this issue, because with my eyes closed, I can see that the work of the Office of the Auditor General is clearly cut out. So we expect them to process reports, do further investigation, and come and report to the committee. Once we have the totality of the picture, only then we'll be able to pinpoint to exactly where there are still areas that require further consequence management. But for those areas that there's prima facie evidence, they must not wait for further investigation. They must act on those people. Companies found to be incomplicit be blacklisted, so that they don't prop up in another department and do the same shoddy work as it were.
And of course, I assume also, Chair, that once you find those companies, you'll also check on some of the other tenders that they were awarded by other government departments. I know your department, of course, has only, or rather your portfolio, of course, has only to do with the military veterans, but I'm assuming you'd advise that there be an audit on whatever else was awarded to these businesses during this time.
Yes, you say military veterans is Department of Defense.
Yes.
We're talking. The Department of Military Veterans is another department, but they are both overseen by the Minister of Defense and the military veterans. So you are right. And it is now the agency's responsibility to look where these companies are also, doing work for the government and how they are performing against the contracts. Because it looks to me that we were swindled. There was corruption. There's evidence of corruption, I must say. And all of that will only come out once the department has started, both departments have started applying consequence management. The Auditor General has been lamenting on this issue that there's been a lack of holding officials accountable. But on this one, we'll not let it go. We'll insist that action must be taken against those found responsible.
All right. Thank you for speaking to us. That was Cyril Baba, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans chairperson.